Thanks, Henry. Yeah. So I will talk a little more present times. My experience here with North Carolina networking is just a little over 10 years old. So I'll talk a little bit more about the transition during that time. But I'll build on this notion of Metcalfe's law. You know, and Henry is talking about the value of the network is the square of the people connected. I would extend it a little bit and say the value of the collaboration, right, and of even the planning around building the network. And so I would observe that an event like today is a great example of what is, I think, the special sauce in North Carolina, where things get brought together. It's not just universities, it's not just government. It is corporate involvement, it is university researchers and the network operators at the universities who build those networks. And that's something I think we do particularly well in North Carolina. If I think back over my time here, one of the things that we did about eight or so years ago was to create what we call the BEN, the Breakable Experimental Network. That was done with lots of help with RENCI, with MCNC, and with the universities. And it takes us back to some of the things said earlier today. One of the important things with networks is aggregating the demand and removing the barriers. And a project like BEN enabled us to do experimentation across the 3 Triangle universities with the research partners, with the advanced networking operation, and extend what we could each do individually, right? Metcalfe's law again. And experiment in ways that then created a foundation for yet more. And what we're seeing now is a lot of grants that are coming to the universities, to the research activities here in North Carolina that are growing out of those breakable networks, those ways to experiment. And then the next piece is, how do we take it even further? How do we take it to Glenn's examples he gave, to those network applications of the future? So we're working with our researchers, we're working with the other universities here in the state, with the community, to figure out, how do we build these networks? How do we use software-defined networking to let them be distributed and keep them secure, right? Give the bandwidth that's needed, don't give more security. And this is exactly what North Carolina does so well, and what, as I think Joe alluded to earlier, what we need universities working together and with the innovators, who are oftentimes our students, oftentimes individuals out in the community, to try new things, because we can't really fully appreciate or know what we need until we've experimented with it. And that community that is as diverse as possible, to bring as much different perspective to the experimentation as we can, is essential. When I talked to Jeff about the research he does, how it will be used, he's got a great perspective, but it's his perspective. When we throw a dozen or 2 students into that and ask them what would they do with it, completely different ideas. Medical professionals, completely different ideas. So that idea of the community is not just the value of the network, but the value of the collaboration and the value of the benefit we get out of it is at least squared, if not more, by the participants. I'll pass it down.
Okay, thanks. So, yeah, I'd like to extend the discussion there, and I really appreciated what Oscar and Glenn have said so far about the kind of the future of SDN and some of those capabilities. I'm going to talk a little bit about the platform that we currently have today and sort of where we're going with it. So, you know, Joe's mentioned that talked about NC-REN and the fact that we've sort of covered the state, and that it's really there as a benefit for our citizens. There's a couple of aspects that are really important of the platform that I want to just touch on. One is flexibility. Glenn and Oscar have really talked a lot about that within the context of SDN. I think that's a great next step. We're doing a lot of that today by supporting education, by supporting research, by supporting healthcare, public safety, and other community anchors. And I think some of these new capabilities are just going to allow us to extend the way we serve those various sectors. So flexibility of the network is really important, and some of these new technologies, I think, are going to really help us there. The platform has to be scalable. You know, if you think about some of these projects like GigU and like US Ignite and the Google Fiber project in Kansas City, they're based on a premise that says if you give people unlimited bandwidth, great things happen. And I think we very much are in a position to try to help that. We really believe in that particular way of thinking. So what we've managed to do through this infrastructure that serves all these various sectors is really try to do as much as we can to remove those bandwidth caps, and we've been very successful, particularly with the BTOP build. And then lastly, the infrastructure has to be sustainable for the long term. It's important that I think we have a good plan for sustainability, and there's one key aspect of that. Joe touched on it a little bit, the idea of this being an open access fiber platform. It allows us to partner with companies to see the value of some of that excess capacity that we've built into this infrastructure, and to be able to do innovative things with it in a commercial sector. It's a great economic development story for the state. I think it also helps us from a sustainability perspective. It's a win-win situation. We're able to generate some revenue that helps us just continue to operate the network into the future. So those are kind of the key aspects of the current platform. I just want to touch briefly on a couple of specific technology areas that we're investing in. One of the key pieces and sort of a core mission of ours is providing high-performance broadband for all these sectors that we've talked about. And we're currently in the planning stages of introducing 100 gigabit technology into our network. We'll be building out the core, making it an available client connection, as well as upgrading all our upstream connections to Internet 2 and other research networks that support 100G. We feel like that's just kind of the down payment that we need to be able to support some of what we see as just unlimited bandwidth growth, following the same curve that we've seen for a number of years. Also looking at opportunities to do peering with content providers and other research and education networks. As we see the rise of cloud computing and the MOOCs, which are the massive open online courses, we're seeing the traffic patterns change, and our ability to do these peerings and build relationships with some of these big content providers helps us be flexible in that area. We always want to support kind of the special projects, sort of the beyond broadband things that people like Ilia and RENCI and Tracy has mentioned about projects like BEN, where we can provide direct access to dark fiber for the folks that need it. So the BEN project has been around for a while. That's really kind of research triangle based. And what we've been able to do with the BTOP build is provide an additional 2,400 miles of dark fiber throughout the state that's available for research. Every time we build a route, if we can, we build in extra capacity for research. And so I think that's a huge capability that really differentiates North Carolina from a lot of the other places in the country, the ability to be able to provide that to the research community. And then lastly, we're working really hard on robust shared services. There's a lot of efforts nationally to try to aggregate demand for a lot of these cloud services. And we feel that that's a really cost-effective way to get to a lot of our constituents. Where in some cases, for some of the smaller institutions, are wrapping some additional support capability around those services, and also delving into looking at identity management as a key piece of that, so that as these services grow exponentially, we'll be ready from the perspective of having people be able to appropriately manage their identities in cyberspace. So, Ilia?